Good afternoon. I hope everyone had a wonderful Thanksgiving. With that, I would like to remind everyone that our meetings are web streamed and televised. I would like to ask you to ensure your phones are on silent mode and to keep your cameras on and mute yourself when not speaking. And of course, remind yourself to unmute yourself when you are speaking. Please use the microphone Teams to raise your hands. And I can call upon you, and please remove it after you have finished speaking. So, welcome again to the meeting today, and a reminder that we will have a council and committee meeting beginning at 3 p.m. So with that, I call the Budget Committee to order. I would like a motion to approve the agenda and the changes to the agenda. We have a couple of changes. A memo from the Deputy Clerk outlining the rationale for severances to the CS 21-64 budget engagement, the campaign, survey and results, reporting, and presentation materials for our deputations. Do I have any other changes or additions, or can I get a mover? I don't see. Okay, I see Amy as the mover. A seconder, please. Ian, thank you very much. And with that, I will call the motion. All those in favor? There's none opposed, obviously, so it is carried. Let us continue on. I'd like to ask if there is any declarations of pecuniary interest. And seeing none. Today we have 3 presentations this afternoon. A reminder to those presenters that they have a limit of 5 minutes. I will try to remind you at the last minute of your presentation. So first of all, we have Anne Lecuyer. Do I have Anne on the line or with us? Thank you. I don't see Anne.
Through you, Chair Bandendrishi, she is on the line.
Okay.
She's just muted at this time.
Okay, so Anne, if we could ask you to come on board here, Anne, and unmute. And welcome your discussion on fenced-in leash-free dog park for Port Dover. Do I have, I'm not seeing her. She's where?
I don't hear.
So what's up?
Just let her know she's on mute.
Okay.
Just or mute.
Oh, okay, take that off.
Just let her know she's
Dan, would just like to remind you you're on mute. Could you unmute yourself if you could, please, Anne?
There. Do you have me now?
Yes, we do, Anne. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Welcome. And like I've indicated, you have 5 minutes to make your presentation. And if you'd like to go ahead, and near the end of your presentation, I'll remind you of the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your patience with me trying to figure out this system. Good afternoon, Mayor Chaub and County Councillors. I wish to start by thanking you for allowing me to speak with you today regarding the need in Port Dover for a fenced-in, leash-free dog park. There is a large number of Port residents who support the need for a dog park in Port Dover. To date, we've just gotten to 461 signatures that have been gathered through social media, supporting the need for a dog park. People, myself included, are looking for an area to safely run and play with our canines off leash. In the spring of 2021, we met with Norfolk staff asking that locations be sought and implemented of a dog park for 2022 to be looked for. We were informed Council had been previously approved in principle a dog park in Port Dover and that monies were set aside in 2029 capital for a fenced-in leash-free dog park in Port Dover. I come before you today to request Norfolk County Council to approve moving said monies from 2029 to be allocated to 2022 capital budget. The location we keep coming back to is the property that housed the public school beside Kinsman Park, and I would ask that Bill Cridland be so kind as to speak to this. The location is a good distance from residential areas, is easily accessed by foot, has ample parking, is close to the Kinsman Pavilion, public washrooms, large trees provide flat grounds with a good portion of fencing already installed. Many dog owners would appreciate it if we could have an area fenced in for small dogs only, as well as the large area dog park, and then the smaller breeds. The dog park would have the same rules set out by Norfolk County and presently implemented in Simcoe and Waterford. Dog owners have been attending different dog parks in Southern Ontario, and there are many great suggestions that can be implemented to ensure our dog park is a safe, secure, and fun place for dog owners to bring their canines. Again, thank you for allowing me this opportunity to present to you, and thank you to Bill Cridland and the county staff as well.
Well, thank you, Anne. That was an excellent presentation. I see that we have questions from the councillors first. Amy Martin.
Thanks, Chair. Through you to Anne, thanks for your deputation, Anne, and I too would like to call on Bill and have him provide council with a little bit of some background here. But before that, I just wondered if we could have a little bit discussion here around your thoughts and your committee level discussions as to why a dog park should be advanced in Port Dover and not in any other community. Why do you believe that this is something that council should look at moving up in the budget over any other community? Delhi also has one in the capital plans for 2029.
Okay, Port Dover has a lot of dogs. Since last year, there seems to be a major increase in canines. A lot of people are letting their dogs run loose in Port Dover, in the parks and in neighborhood areas. And there's been quite a few concerns being raised by residents with this off-leash situation that's been happening. And it would be nice to have an area where people can at least take their dog and allow them off-leash and not be interrupting other people's lives in neighborhoods and other parks.
Okay, thanks, Anne. I guess further to that, I was specifically trying to drill down on the discussions that the committee has had concerning fundraising and fundraising, period.
Well, actually, fundraising will take place if it's necessary and needed, but without having a place for our location since the springtime, we've held off on that. No sense raising money if we don't know where it's going to be and what's going to be needed for that specific location.
Fair point. Okay, I don't have any further questions, and Chair Van Andrieschie, whenever you're finished with questions, I believe Bill Cridland would like to speak to this.
Thank you, Amy. Yes, I see Mayor Chalk, you have a question?
Thanks, Councillor Van Andrieschie. Thanks, Anne. Just a question. I was just looking at some studies from some other feasibility studies for dog parks that have gone on in other areas. And one of the things in this particular one that I'm looking at, it says that 86% of participants said that they would pay an annual user permit fee. And it sort of kind of coincides with the fact that we're doing the with our budget meeting here today. Is that something that you've ever asked of people? Again, as we look at, you know, we've got I believe, is it 3 dog parks here in Norfolk County right now, or is it 2 or 3? And I'm just, you know, as you compare on 64,000 people, obviously there's an operating cost to maintaining these as well. And when you look at other municipalities, I think, you know, the city of Niagara Falls actually has fewer dog parks even than we have here. So is that something that would be, that you guys have ever talked about or considered?
Thank you, Mayor Chop. Yes, I have discussed that with a few people, and they're willing to pay to use the dog park. There are also people who privately want to use the dog park for their dogs for their own reason. They're trying to train the dog on its own, and they have said that they would pay to use.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other further questions? Seeing none, would Bill be able to come on the line and speak with us for a bit?
Yes, thank you, Chair Van Adrishi. I'm hoping you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to speak. Staff had dealt with Ann and the group in Port Dover early on in 2021, as Ann said. Looking at location, looking at possibly, the group fundraising, that sort of thing. And what staff came down to was that knowing things were changing with the budget process, and there was actually a day in November for this, we held the group off to come and bring Ann as a representative for her thoughts here today. And I think Ann is correct. The work staff have did on location, we do keep coming back to the old school in Port Dover, and the benefit, what I can go over them again is, we have fencing along Highway 6 already that is in place for where the old school was. We have a fence between the Kinsman Park property and the in the park, so we would be down to 2 sections of fencing versus say 4 if we went to another site. We also have adequate parking, maybe not adequate parking, but there is some parking at Kinsman, and there is some concrete gravel parking on this old school property. There are public washrooms once COVID goes away or clears up that'll be in the area. There's the shade trees, and we just think it's probably one of the better spots to have. There are no residents very close when sometimes dogs get excited and barking, so staff are leaning towards this property. We've also chatted with our EIS folks, as the environmental group own that property. Let's say it's county property, but they sort of manage the school property for expansion of the possible someday of the sewage treatment plant. They have no problems with us fencing off a little area or an area for the dogs. And we've also have not talked to the Kinsman Club yet, but and staff thinking ahead, we realize if we put some fences up that we may limit some of the areas for camping for the Kinsmen for Friday the 13th. And we think an easy fix to that is just have a couple, whatever we end up gating off is we could have some gates, because we're going to need gates in there anyways for staff to cut the grass. So we think we could open them for Friday the 13th. Campers could come in, and obviously the dog park would be non-functioning for a few days before the Friday 13th events and a couple after. Another thing we talked about is maintenance on the dog parks. Staff cut the grass there now, so like there wouldn't be any additional grass cutting or work that we know of. There would be some signage in the fencing. I think staff had put both Dover, Port Roan, and Delhi. When we got a few requests on this, put them later in the year. We figured dog parks, at least in staff's opinion, were maybe more of a want than a need as we go through our budget pressures here. But the Port Dover group has come out, contacted staff this year, did some homework on what they can offer. So at this point, staff are here to back the group, that we think that is a good location. Obviously, it's up to council to move the 29,000 from 229 down to 2022. We may be able to come in under that 29,000 because I said 2 sides are already fenced. And I think what I would likely, I'm not sure how council wants to handle this today, but if they took this as information, and then when we got to the capital budget presentation, staff could easily work with Ann and her group and supply a map showing the fenced-in area. Right now, it's along number 6. For some of you, perhaps Mayor Chop and Councillor Martin, who know the area, it would be that north corner of the school property. But we could supply a map and give council some more, give them a visual, and we could also pin down a price. We may need that full 29,000, or depending on the space, we may be able to come in quite a bit lower than that. So that's all I can add. The group in Dover have been good to work with. Seems to be a lot of interest there. That's not saying there isn't interest in Port Roan or Delhi, but as of now, we haven't heard from those communities. So staff would do the same for them if they come together with an organized group. So I think that's all I have to add for additional information. And again, I'm here for any questions council may have.
Thank you, Bill. I have 2 speakers. I have Amy, then I have Kim.
Thanks, Chair Vanandrishi. Through you to Bill. So would you suggest that some type of report could come back at budget? We just kind of punt this down to dealing with it at budget, so we have perspective of the other finances we're dealing with. But at that point in time, you could put a map and some more actual, financial figures in there, and we'll deal with it at that point in time. Is that your suggestion?
Through the chair to the Councillor Martin, that would work for me, because I think we didn't want to front load this too much and put council in a position where they had to make a decision today, because I think as capital budget comes forward, that's a wise decision. You can throw all the pieces of the puzzle together, and we can then, whether it's a memo or information report, we can definitely come to the table with a map and updated numbers and give council more information to make a solid decision on this.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good to me. Sorry, if a couple more comments there.
Sure.
That sounds good to me, Bill. I guess I would also be curious as to what you and staff think a suitable fundraising dollar would be. I recognize that this is in the capital plan and this is an expense that, council could undertake at that point in time, but I am also conscious that other communities are keen to have a park as well. So I think part of the incentive for moving this up in Port Dover is that this group is ready and prepared to bring some money forward. So I would be interested in being a little bit more specific with a minimum we could hope that the group would come forward with as well. And I don't know, the most appropriate way to tackle that, but I think if we can keep the ball rolling on it, then that would be suitable. And I also just wanted to comment on your comment with regards to maintenance. I guess some extra garbage cans and so on would need to go there as well, but I'm glad to hear that it's minimal maintenance if we're already caring for that location. So I would be interested about the fundraising conversation as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Kim?
Thank you, Chair. Actually, my question was answered by Bill as he went further into his explanation, so I'm good. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. That's wonderful. Mayor Chop, I did see, did you have a question? No? Okay, thank you. All right, thank you very much, Anne. We appreciate your comments, and we will obviously be looking at that at a later date. So with that, if there's no further questions to Anne's deputation, I'd like to ask for a motion to receive the deputation. Can I have a mover? Amy? A seconder? Tom? All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you so much. We have the next deputation, and the next deputation, I think Samantha's online as well as Sonia.
Yes, we're here.
Okay, thank you. So I'm wondering as well, you know that you have approximately the 5 minutes, and I'll remind you near the end, but if you'd like to start, welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much for having us. My name's Samantha Lawson. I'm the CAO of the Grand River Conservation Authority, and I have Sonia Radoja, who is the manager of our corporate services here today. Recognizing the time limit, we're probably going to go pretty quickly through things. We did have a slide presentation, but I don't necessarily think that needs to come up. We can probably just speak to it and then answer any questions that council may have. So the Grand River Conservation Authority is located in Southern Ontario. It's one of the largest geographically based CAs in the province, and a small portion of it is within Norfolk County. So the Grand River Conservation Authority operates a wide range of programs from engineering, planning, land management, recreation, and education. Our strategic mandate is to develop and implement watershed-based programs that protect people and property from flooding and erosion, improve the health of the watershed, and connect people to the environment and manage our land holdings in a responsible and sustainable manner. Our programs balance human, environmental, and economic needs so that we can deliver on our vision of a healthy watershed for now and also for future generations. We build relationships and trust with our watershed partners to achieve those common goals. And so I'm going to pass the rest of this over to Sonia to talk about our draft 2022 budget.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I assume you can hear me?
Yes, I can.
Perfect. Thank you for the opportunity to present our budget. The challenge is here. We're in a state of flux. Regulations that are going to be coming out, or part of them have just been released this past week. And it's a matter of now looking at how we will be funded into the future, and the concept of having mandatory programs that can be levy funded versus non-mandatory programs. And the other challenge we have is to just generally manage the uncertainty created by COVID. In terms of the new regulations, part of them were released just recently, so we have those to work with. There was a consultation process, and there was 2 guides to be published. One was published back in September, the other one's still pending. And one of the big things that came out of the regulations that were just released is the transition period was told it would initiate at the end of 2022, so we had one more budget year just to work with, but now they are giving conservation authorities one additional year to say that these new funding regulations come into play not until the 2024 budget. So given this, certainly we already knew that for 2022, we are not directly impacted by these regulations. We will continue to operate our programs and fund them as we have in the past. The areas, then the next major problem in terms of or challenge, I wouldn't say problem, is how we manage in the pandemic environment. And we see us being impacted in 4 sorts of areas. One is our conservation areas, and that has turned out to be almost a positive impact. Our attendance is booming, our revenue is booming. We are looking to come in $2 million over budget. It was way down in 2020 because there was all sorts of delays in opening and whatnot. But even with our restrictions that we do have in place on capacity and camping, we are looking at very strong revenue in terms of day visits and our membership passes. So that's been okay. Certainly there are increased costs related to all of this, but it's doing well. Our outdoor educational program is substantively impacted by the fact that we used to offer summer day camps. We did not this year. We do also not plan in the 2022 budget to offer those. Those are still off the table, along with our community program and along with part of our school program that we deliver. That's all been contracted due to COVID. And certainly there are incremental costs related to managing this, such as health and safety equipment, signage, use of vehicles to manage our protocols for COVID, etc. And so those are coming to over $200,000 is our estimate in 2020 for the current year, and the budget hasn't been impacted by that directly because there has been discretionary spending in terms of travel and other types of administrative costs that have been reduced, and we're seeing those as basically about offsetting at this point. So basically our budget is set right now at about $31 million. That's a little bit less than last year, but that's really because of timing right now. We have a lot of special projects that we don't finalize until we get later on into the budget process. So that's the reason for the ultimate reduction in the budget as it stands right now, but it's at $31 million. 25 million of that is our operating budget. And again, we're offering the same programs as we have in the past. Our capital budget sits at about 3.5 million. And it's fairly standard status quo as relates to managing our flood structures and managing and making capital repairs in the conservation areas. Each of those budgets that are just over 1.5 million. And finally, as I mentioned, special projects is very much in flux. It's only sitting at about 1.5 million right now. It'll probably double by year end. Right now, the sort of standard projects are the source protection program, and all our special projects, they rate such as that they do not rely on any general municipal levy. The biggest one being the source protection program at about $800,000 and our rural water quality grants program. So finally, our budget is, if you look at our revenue funding and how it's split up, About half of it is self-generated and about 40% is that municipal levy. And then the rest is other governments or our reserves slightly. Our overall municipal levy is set to increase this point at about 2.5%. It's about a $12.5 million levy that we request from all our municipal partners. And then there's a proration formula that's applied, and Norfolk is impacted to the extent that their levy will go up 2.8%, so slightly above the overall. And that's putting you up to about a $800 increase to about almost $30,000. And Madam Chair, that is that's the end of our formal presentation.
Thank you, Sonia. Thank you, Samantha. I'm going to put it to the councillors now. I'm sure there's a few questions to be had here. Who's my first speaker? Okay, look at that. Oh, Kim, you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to expand a little bit on the admin costs that you've spoken about. It's come to my attention recently in the past week or so that the staffing is very underserviced through the Grand River Conservation Authority. I'm having some troubles actually dealing with a situation in my ward which falls under the Grand River Conservation Authority. So are you accounting for the lower staff number in these admin costs?
Through you, Madam Chair, no, by admin costs, I mean, that's excluding staff costs. Our staffing budget is separate and it is being increased. And are you referring to our parks or maybe our planning department? Because I know those are areas where we're feeling.
Planning department.
Yes, and planning did hire a couple people. So and it's being mainly funded by increased revenue because the revenues are going through the roof. So yes, those admin costs were more like travel, communications costs, no more Zoom meetings, that sort of thing.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Is there anyone else? With that, I'd like to get a motion to receive the deputation as information, or if there's an alternative. Mike, thank you. Seconder Ryan. All those in favor? Approved. Thank you so much, Samantha and Sonia, and thrilled to hear you are having strong revenues. That's wonderful. Oh, I think Chris Van Passen has a question.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, I couldn't get your attention on the first deputation. The motion was to receive this information, but didn't we discuss whether we direct staff to bring back a report or not? And should not be direction to staff included in that motion?
I assumed it was being brought back anyway, so I didn't know that there was a necessity for a motion, but would you like to make that as a motion, Chris? We can go backwards.
Well, unless I, check with staff, but just because we discussed it, staff needs clear direction on whether council wants something done or not want it done. And don't leave them hang out to dry. Either tell them we want a report brought back or tell them that we just received this information and basically dies, right? So
okay,
let's get them clear direction. I'll go to the mover and the seconder, what their intent was when they made that motion.
May I go back to the mover and seconder, please, Amy?
Thanks, Chair Vanendrishi. I also heard Bill say an information memo. So, Bill, are you still on the line?
Yeah, through the chair, I am. I was off for a little bit, made a call, but I am back. So I guess
we're just debating if we lock in direction in a motion for you, or if you need direction to do an information memo with regards to the dog park.
It was my understanding it was a report. I did mention a memo. I think it'd be the same information in both. A memo was a little quicker to do through the process, but I can make either work. And yeah, we'll spell out costs, talk about fundraising, give location. So if a memo will suffice, staff can throw that together quite easily for the budget meeting.
Can we make that a motion then to receive that from you, Bill?
I think it's probably maybe defer to the clerk, but I understand what's needed, but I believe clerks, Kevin can correct me if I'm wrong, would probably like a resolution, and then it's there, it's solid, and everybody is on the same page.
I'll go to you, Kevin.
Through you, Chair Van Andrieschie, I have prepared a brief resolution for council consideration that staff report back with supplementary information regarding the Port Dover leash-free dog park at the capital budget, if that works for
the mover and seconder. Will that work to add on to the motion from the? Okay, who's the seconder? Who's the seconder in that one? Oh, wasn't mine. Who was it? Can I ask who the seconder was, Kevin?
The seconder was Councillor Michelle.
Councillor Michelle, is that okay with both of you then?
Yes, Chair Van Andrieschie, I'm content.
Thank you. Do I recall the vote? I'm going back to you, Kevin. Do I recall the vote?
Chair Van Andrieschie, sure, just for confirmation if on the same page.
Okay, let's recall the vote then. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you, it's carried. Okay, so let's go moving on then to the second deputation. We are looking for a motion of receiving this deputation. Oh, can I get a mover or did I get one? Can I get a mover?
Through you, Chair Van Andrieschie, we have the.
Oh, we have it done.
We have it done with moved by Councillor Columbus and seconded by Councillor Taylor.
Well, there you go. Chris threw me right out of sync there. So anyway, moving right along. Thank you. Like you haven't done before. Thanks, Chris. All righty, moving right along. We also have from the Norfolk County Library, budget request, Adam Berry.
Hello.
Thank you. Okay, I don't see you, Adam, but
I'm here.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that. I'll turn the floor over to you then.
Okay, so quickly I'm going to just present our new strategic plan that we've developed at the library because the budget is informed by that strategy. So our strategic planning committee has set the course up until 2023. So our new mission statement is to preserve the past, address the present, prepare for the future. Within our vision statement, we're committed to providing resources, being welcoming, accessible places, promoting literacy, being a community leader in providing access to technology, and creating opportunities for lifelong learning. So within those, there's strategic directions related to customer service, inclusivity, or inclusiveness, I guess, relevant collections, creating community connections, preparing for future development, and seeking opportunity to generate sustainable financing. So, basically, the budget, like I say, it sort of correlates with those objectives and goals. So, what we are asking for, or preparing to ask for, is a 2.5% increase in our budget next year, and that's to our operating. So with our operating, where we're looking for that is a cost of living increase to non-union staff of 1%. The utility and insurance increases, we are looking at a 4% increase to our expenses. And then we're looking at reducing our fundraising commitments that we've done this year due to the budget reduction. We want to reduce that commitment for next year by 30%. And for several reasons. On the capital end, our intention is to request, we have capital projects that we're going to total $591,000. That includes $322,000 for library materials, books and so on, and electronic resources, which are split about 50-50 of that budget. That also includes a $10,000 annual contribution to our reserves. We need security and technology in at 20,000, and we have 189,000 worth of shelving replacements for Simcoe, and then an additional 60,000 for flooring replacements for Simcoe. So that's a $591,000 total, but because of our ability to get grants and other funding, we've been able to actually knock off 164,000 of that. So our request to Council for Capital is going to be 427,000. So that's where we're at right now, and we just, I guess, want to take this opportunity to present that information to you, so you are aware of where we're at with our planning and where our request will be. That's it for me.
Thank you, Adam. I'm going to go to council now. Are there any further questions to the deputation? Chris? I'm catching you now, Chris.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. The 2.5% increase in the operating budget and a capital of 427. What was last year's capital request, and what's the increase year over year on that one?
That I do not actually have. Is Heather on the line? She said she was going to try to be. Heather King?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you very much. Last year's budget request for capital totaled $336,000. 316 of that was for library materials. So we are requesting a 2% increase in that budget as we have over the next 10 years. The biggest increase in the ask this year is to replace our shelving at the Simcoe branch, which is $189,000. But as Adam indicated, $139,000 of that is going to be received or covered through the ICIP funding. And another item that we have been successful in is replenishing our reserves. We are currently at $488,000 in reserves. So we're anticipating that some of the matching dollars will be paid for out of that reserve fund. Once we meet with our finance team, we can make those decisions. Does that help answer your question, Councillor Van Patten?
Well, you could have answered it easier and say you're looking for a 25% increase in the capital budget. That would have been a quick one.
Well, I don't think with other monies, we potentially could reduce the request, but I think that's something that our board has to discuss in more detail.
Well,
once
and to be fair, I think that request for the new shelving and the flooring came last year, and it was cut last year because of other big issues that came along. So you're playing catch up, and now you're fortunate to get a grant on some of it. So I think that we'll have to look at that one very closely come budget time.
Yes, we actually received a grant over the next 3 years. So we will be replacing shelving at 3 of our branches. And that will bring us up to code for AODA, which we need to be in line with by 2025.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next is Mike. You have a question?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And I have a question for Heather, I guess. There's a group called the Friends, and I know some of the board members are probably involved there. Can you share with us, I know they're going through some fundraising efforts in the communities, and can you share with us how much they expect to raise and what do you anticipate those dollars will go towards?
Sure. Thank you. And through the chair, back to Councillor Columbus. We have 3 very active Friends of the Library groups in our branches. The Delhi Friends of the Library is actively raising money to complete a reading garden, and I believe their budget to do that completion work is at least $15,000. The Port Dover Friends of the Library has recently raised over $20,000 to complete a reading garden outside of that branch. And they're also looking at a tech kind of reading garden to be added to that in the future. And then the other groups support the Dolly Parton Imagination Library, which we are currently supporting 425 children in Norfolk County, ages birth to 5 years. And they're committed to raise $20,000 per year to support those children so they can receive one free book per month until they reach the age of 5.
Thank you. That's great news.
Do we have any further questions? Seeing none, thank you very much for the both of you for the answers to our questions. With no further questions, can I get a motion to receive the deputation as information or an alternative? Amy? Oh, thank you. Seconder Kim? All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you so much. So moving right along, we have communications, item number 5, but there is none, so we get to skip that. So we're going to move on to the staff reports, which everyone's online, I guess. Item number 6. Okay. Getting another thing. Okay. So, Shelley, I wonder if you're on the line?
Thank you, Chair Vandendriessche. Yes, I'm on the line, and we're on item number 6.1. That's with respect to the proposed 2022 user fees. And I believe that Kathy LaPlante has some introductory comments to this report, and then Catherine Fanning will be walking us through the details.
Thank you.
Kathy?
Thanks, Shelley. Thank you, Chair Vandendriessche. Through the Chair to Budget Committee, I'm just going to take a few minutes to introduce the report and, as Shelley mentioned, pass it on to Catherine Fanning for some more details. Council may recall, and they actually just heard another 2.5% increase, but in July, Council approved 2.5% budget guidance, which will be very challenging to achieve as everyone has been experiencing increasing costs because of COVID. There's been issues related to another supplies becoming scarce, etc. But it is a challenging year, but we are continuing to work towards that. Approving the user fees as presented will assist in our success in meeting this challenge, as municipal user fees are the third main source of revenue for Norfolk County. The most difficult task, though, I must say, is in developing and proposing user rates is to find a balance with regards to community benefit, subsidization rates, and affordability for our residents. So with that, though we took a break during COVID in an effort to ensure our fees undergo a comprehensive review, staff are committed to aggressively pursuing those reviews again in 2022. So with that, I'll pass it on to Catherine Fanning so that she can provide you a little bit more detail of the background with the policy and the fees that are being proposed.
Thank you, Kathy. So through the chair to the members of the Budget Committee, report CS 2161 includes the proposed user fees recommended for 2022. The report includes the proposed user fee recommendations that will start on January the 1st. And these rates and fees will be used in the preparation of the 2022 levy-supported operating budget, as mentioned by Kathy. So that budget is scheduled to be presented to the Budget Committee on January 12th and 13th. This report excludes the water and wastewater rates and fees, which will be presented to the committee on November 9th Budget Committee. Norfolk County's user fee policy was adopted in December of 2014. The overall theme of this policy is to recover the full cost of providing services, except where council supports a lower rate or an exemption, whereas the community benefits, or rates that are based on open markets. These are when a service is provided and the fees charged are less than full cost recovery, the difference will be funded through other revenue sources, such as property taxes. The policy also provides for an annual inflationary adjustment to be applied to all fees in order to keep the fee at the approved recovery level. Based on an analysis of prior year's budget drivers, the 2022 budget drivers, and CPI index changes, it is recommended that the inflationary adjustment of 2.5% be applied to all fees. Rounding of fees occurs in many instances, and the main reason many fees increase slightly different by 2.5% because of that rounding. So of note, in the 2022 fee report, no comprehensive reviews have been included. The presentation of the comprehensive reviews will be presented in separate reports during 2022. So the areas that we are going to target comprehensive reviews in 2022 include recreation user fees for the arenas, building permits and fees, planning user fees, business licensing, as well as the fees within environmental and infrastructure services. So at this time, we would be happy to answer any questions the Budget Committee may have on the specific fees. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Are there any questions? Look at that. You did an amazing job. Okay. Okay, so there's a mover of the staff recommendations or an alternative. Mike? Mike, we can't hear you. Hi.
Yes, thank
you, Mike.
Madam Chair. I had a question to staff with respect to the arena advertising. We gave that up to another company that's doing it on a contract, I guess it is. Can we get an update on that, on how that's progressing? Because I noticed it was taken out of the user fees.
Through the chair to Councillor Columbus. I don't have the exact details of that. I'm not sure if Mr. Sloan or Mr. Cridlin is on the line and is aware of where we are at with that program. But if neither of them are, I can pass along the request and we can get some information back to you.
That'd be great. I'm just curious to know how things are working.
Thank you, Mike. Chris?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not sure if this is the right time to bring this up, but I think I've consistently brought it up every other year. If you're going to be doing a review of, the different areas, one of which is recreation, at what point do we also include what types of programs that we actually offer? I look at things like the goalie schools and the elite hockey schools. Those type of programs, is that really something that the county needs to be in the business of, or is that something that we just need to make sure that there's ice available for a private sector group to put those courses on? So as part of that overall review, maybe we can look at sort of the need for some of those programs, or whether there's a need for the municipality to be involved in delivering those programs. So I'll just leave that as an idea, but I hope that's part of the overall review.
Catherine, he's made kind of a request. I don't know if you have an answer to that, or if you can plan on that in the future for some sort of answer to that.
Thanks, Chair Vandendrishi. I will pass those comments along and we will make sure that that's part of the review that we're looking at when we're doing the fee review for recreation next year.
Okay, sounds good. Any other questions? So, do I have a mover? A mover, a seconder? A mover, Ian? A seconder? Oh, sorry, Tom, see you. Now there's room here. Is there any debate on the motion? I'm sure we're going to have more later on. With that, I call the vote. All those in favor? Oh, I'm not waiting voting. Carrie, thank you very much. Okay. So, where's Kevin? Kevin, where are we sitting right now? We can't be done the meeting.
through you, Chair Van Driesche, we are at the second staff report regarding the budget engagement campaign survey results, CS 2164.
2164. With that, Shelley, I guess I'm going back to you again.
Thank you, Chair Van Driesche. Staff and Corporate Services launched the 2022 Budget Engagement Campaign on September 17th, with the goal of soliciting as much public input into the budget as possible to help inform Council's decision-making during the annual budget deliberations. The survey was open for a 2-week period. The survey was available online as well as through a call-in option supported by our team at Service Norfolk. A robust advertising campaign was used to notify residents of the survey and included newspaper advertisements in the Norfolk and Tillsonburg News and an online advertising with the Simcoe Reformer website, a boosted Facebook ad, and several Twitter posts. The story was also featured by a local radio station and was included in a Norfolk County media release. The next step in our budget engagement session is planned for Wednesday, October 20th at 6:30 p.m. and will include a short presentation by our finance team, as well as a question and answer session with participants. We've also set up our website for the 2022 budget process on our Norfolk County website. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Catherine Fanning, and she's going to present the detailed findings of the survey and highlight those for Budget Committee this afternoon. Catherine?
Thanks, Shelley. So staff were overall pleased with the level of response from the public. We received 779 individuals providing responses, and we had 612 comments that were provided to open-ended questions. Some key results of the engagement indicated that the majority of people are in support of keeping tax increases at or below the rate of inflation. Some key priorities that were specified by respondents indicate that the most taxpayer funds should be invested in core services, such as emergency services and maintaining road and bridge infrastructure, as well as attracting and retaining businesses to the county. Whereas the following areas were ranked less important for the taxpayer investment of funds and include affordable housing and increasing tourism. We had approximately 87% of individuals who indicated they would be willing to drive between 5 to over 20 minutes further to access a facility if the county was able to provide an improved asset or service. For some of the open-ended questions, we had 2 actually that were asked. I've just included a sample of some of the most common types of responses that we received. So one of the questions was on the long-term financial plan for water and wastewater rates. And some of the comments that were received included that water and wastewater rate increases are outpacing the increases in salaries and pensions of residents, and many feel our current prices are high. So there were a number of comments in support of moving forward with the water solution, including connecting to Nanticoke. There were a lot of comments that development should pay for any of the increased capacity needs. There were also some comments focused on the quality of water. So all of these comments have been attached to the survey. As was noted at the beginning of the meeting, there were some redactions, but just take a look through to see what some of the residents are feeling and what their thoughts are. So we had another open-ended question that was just if they wanted to provide feedback on the overall 2022 budget. And some of the comments included that tax increases should remain around the level of inflation. Maintaining core services is very important. However, non-core services like the library and recreation facilities should also remain a priority of the county. Comments indicated support for recreation facility investments. Some respondents were focused on the level of investment provided for policing services and the proportion of our budget that we send for that contract. Many comments suggested that if further efficiencies should be investigated and, if required, additional cost-cutting measures should be reviewed in order to keep the taxes at a low, the increase as low as possible. Many comments were also specific to road infrastructure, indicating areas of poor condition. So the full survey results, including some graphs, have been attached to report CS 2164. As you all know, we will use these comments in developing the 2022 budget. And really the survey is one of the tools that we use to help us understand what the residents in Norfolk County are thinking and to help support and council's decision making during the budget process. So I'm happy to respond to any questions of committee.
Thank you, Catherine. For full transparency here, could you tell us the redactions that were done? Because we do see the black bars. Could you tell us the reason why those are redacted?
Sure, Councillor or Chair Vanden Drieschie. I'm actually going to pass this one over to Kevin, our Deputy Clerk, to provide a response.
Thank you. Kevin?
Thank you, Chair Vanden Drieschie. The memo redactions were in keeping with MFIPA principles. We're supposed to have responses that we're supposed to list the reasons, and I have done so in a memo that has been added to the amended agenda for publishing this morning. So the reasons why our responses could lead to potentially identifying personal information. And in accordance with our procedural bylaw principles of no person shall be permitted to address council with respect to any labor management disputes, labor relations, union negotiations, and employee relations, and we shouldn't have a brief respecting such matters be listed on an agenda. So the labor relations material was taken out, and also deputations, we went by the same principle that they don't speak disrespectfully to anyone, use offensive language, or speak on subject matter other than the subject which has been received approval to be addressed. So if there was swear words, if there was insults, and if there was comments that didn't relate to the question.
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate that. I wanted to make that as a verbal announcement for those who, when they're looking at this, see the redactions. Ryan, you had a question.
Yes, thank you, Chair Vanden Drieschie. Catherine, I'm wondering if you could just do a pitch for the virtual public engagement session as well, because I know that's coming up in pretty short order here for the public.
For sure, Councillor Taylor. So we do have our very exciting budget engagement session that's going to be at 6:30 on October the 20th. So in that session, we're just going to have a very short presentation by the financial management and planning team. And then we are also planning on including some remarks from our budget chair. And potentially the co-chair. We haven't spoken to the co-chair about that yet, but we are planning on requesting that. And then we are opening the floor to some targeted brainstorming and question moments with the public. So last year we didn't have a lot of attendance, so I do appreciate the time to discuss it further. But I do think that the brainstorming and the discussions that we have at these sessions gives us more important feedback that we can use toward the budget and looking forward into 2022 for our county. So thank you, Councillor Taylor.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Chris, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just like to make the comment that, you can pretty well do anything with surveys and statistics you want. I noticed one of the low priority areas is there's no concern about high-speed internet. Well, you got that information from an online survey, 60% of which were in the urban areas. Obviously, they already have internet service. The rest of the county that doesn't have service couldn't do an online survey. So again, it's all good information to have. It showed a lot of common themes in the priorities, but I can't quite take it as absolute perfect because of it's a little bit biased on the way you were able to gather it this year. So just keep that in the back of your mind, I guess.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Catherine. Shelley?
Thank you, Chair Van Dendriesche. Through to Councillor Van Passen. That was great feedback. We also had a robust discussion with Chair Van Dendriesche last week about the survey, and some of the suggestions moving forward into next year will be how we can get this perhaps individuals that are at our front counter at Service Norfolk. We also talked about a partnership with one of our booths, hopefully at the Norfolk County Fair next year, and having Service Norfolk or finance team members there with the survey as well, or other opportunities throughout the county to sort of interact with individuals who are uncomfortable using the online forum or may not have the internet speed to do that. So as council is aware, this is certainly a project that has continual improvements from when we first launched it, and we continue to see year after year additional improvements that we can make to get the information from our residents.
Wonderful. Do we have any more questions or comments? Come on. I'm sure you're saving it up. Thank you, Shelley. With that, if there is no further discussion, I would ask that I'd like to get a motion of the staff recommendations or an alternative. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Okay, Ryan is our mover and Kim is our seconder. All those in favor? Now, I neglected this was on the floor if there was any further debate, but I see that it has passed, so that's wonderful. No one else has any comments or concerns? We're wrapping it up. Kevin, am I correct in indicating that we are basically finished with our meeting today?
Through Chair Van Dendriesche, the last remaining item is to have that council adjourn at 2:06 p.m. or that committee adjourn at 2:06 p.m.
Can I get a mover to that we are adjourning at 2:06 and coming back for 3? Thank you. Seconder Chris, all those in favor of adjournment? Look at that. And we're all coming back for 3. Thank you all for your patience.